The communication chamber on mining station, Kepler 44b, was filled with the sound of breaking equipment. Sparks flew from damaged panels as Vex Milani worked frantically at the main console. His 6 arms moved with desperate speed, trying to repair the transmission array before it was too late. Vex belonged to the Quillian species, race of bird-like beings covered in soft gray feathers. His large golden eyes reflected the blinking lights of the console as he fought to establish a connection. The Quillians were known throughout their sector as master engineers and builders. But they had one fatal weakness. They were pacifists, who had never learned to fight. "Come on, work," Vex whispered to himself, his voice carrying the musical tone common to his people. Behind him, the station shook as another explosion echoed through the corridors. The enemy was getting closer. Ravager Horde had arrived 3 days ago. Vex had watched in horror as their massive organic ships surrounded the mining station. These creatures were unlike anything the Quillians had ever faced. They consumed entire worlds, stripping them of all life and resources before moving on. To their next target, Vex had seen what they did to other Quellian colonies. The Ravagers would land their bioships on a planet's surface and begin feeding on the core itself. Within hours, the world would become a dead husk, drained of all energy and life. No species had ever successfully fought them off. The console finally sparked to life. Vex quickly began adjusting the transmission frequency, searching for any signal that might reach beyond their local sector. His people had detected strange energy signatures from the third spiral arm of the galaxy. Signs that suggested an advanced civilization existed there. "Please let someone be listening," Vex prayed as he began recording his message. Far across the galaxy, Commander Jake Harrison was finishing his routine patrol when his ship's communication officer called out from her station. "Sir, we're picking up an unknown transmission," reported Lieutenant Amy Stone. "It's coming from outside our sector, very faint but getting stronger." Harrison was a veteran of Earth's defense forces, a man in his 50s with graying hair and tired eyes. He'd spent most of his career patrolling the outer edges of human space, watching for threats that never came. Humanity had only recently developed faster-than-light travel, and they had not yet made contact with any other intelligent species. "Put it through the translation matrix," Harrison ordered. "Let's see what we're dealing with." The bridge fell silent as strange sounds filled the air. The transmission was clearly artificial, but the language was unlike anything in Earth's databases. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the ship's xenolinguist, hunched over her console with excitement. "This is incredible," she whispered. "It's definitely from an intelligent species. The mathematical patterns are complex, but I can start working on a translation." Back on the mining station, Vex continued his desperate transmission. He had managed to piece together some information about the civilization in the third spiral arm. They called themselves humans, and preliminary scans suggested they came from a world with extreme environmental conditions. Unknown warriors of the third spiral arm, Vex began his message. "We know you exist. We have detected your energy signatures and believe you are a spacefaring species. My name is Vex Milani of the Quillian Confederacy, and I am sending this message because we are dying." Station shook again, more violently this time. Vex could hear the sound of metal being torn apart somewhere in the lower levels. The Ravagers had broken through the outer defenses and were now inside the station itself. "Our people are peaceful," Vex continued. "We have never developed weapons or learned to fight. For thousands of years, this has not mattered because we lived in a quiet part of the galaxy. But now the Ravager Horde has found us." Dr. Vasquez worked frantically at her translation console. The alien language was starting to make sense, and what she was hearing made her blood run cold. "Commander," she called out, "you need to hear this. It's a distress call." Harrison moved to stand behind her station as the translation program began converting the alien words into English. The bridge crew gathered around to listen. "These creatures consume entire worlds." Vex's translated voice filled the bridge. "They are unlike anything we have ever encountered. Their ships are alive, grown rather than built. They feed on planetary cores and strip away all life from any world they touch." The transmission continued with desperate urgency. Vex described how the Ravagers had already destroyed 47 star systems in the past century. No species had ever successfully resisted them. Most civilizations either fled to distant parts of the galaxy or were completely wiped out. We have tried to fight them, Vex explained, but we do not know how. Our people build and create, but we have never learned to destroy. The Ravagers are killing us, and we cannot stop them. On the mining station, Vex paused his transmission as footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. He could hear the chittering sounds that the Ravager drones made as they moved through the station. These creatures were 10 feet tall with razor-sharp claws and acid for blood. They were the ground forces of the Horde, sent to eliminate any survivors. Vex locked the door to the communication chamber and returned to his transmission. Time was running out. If you can hear this message, if you have any honor or mercy, please help us, he continued. We offer everything we have in exchange for your aid. Our technology, our knowledge, our friendship, anything you desire. We are the Quillian Confederacy, and we are dying. Dr. Vasquez looked up at Commander Harrison with wide eyes. Sir, they're offering a technology exchange. According to this transmission, they have faster-than-light communication, advanced shield, generators, and detailed knowledge about these Ravager creatures. Harrison stared at the communication display. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer, and it came with a terrible responsibility. Have detected your energy signatures moving through space? Vex's message continued. Your technology suggests you come from a world with dangerous conditions. Perhaps this has made you strong where we are weak. Perhaps you know how to fight where we only know how to build. The sound of tearing metal filled the communication chamber. The Ravager drones had found the door and were beginning to cut through it. Vex could see their claws piercing the metal, dripping with acid. I do not know if this message will reach you, Vex said, his voice shaking with fear. I do not know if you will care about the fate of strangers. But if you have any compassion, any courage, please remember that innocent people are dying. Children, who have never hurt anyone, are being killed by monsters. The door finally gave way. Vex turned to see 3 Ravager drones entering the chamber, their insectoid bodies gleaming in the artificial light. Their multiple eyes focused on him with cold intelligence. My name is Vex Milani, he said into the transmitter, and I am the last survivor of mining station Kepler 4 for 2B. If anyone receives this message, please remember us. Please remember that we tried to live in peace. The transmission ended abruptly. On the human ship, the bridge fell into stunned silence. Commander Harrison stared at the communication display, processing what they had just heard. Dr. Vasquez, he said quietly, how long would it take to translate our response into their language? Sir, are you planning to answer? She asked. Harrison looked around at his crew. These were good people, trained to protect humanity from threats. But they had just heard about innocent aliens being slaughtered by monsters, and it went against everything they believed in to ignore such a cry for help. Yes, Harrison said firmly. We're going to answer, and we're going to contact Earth Command. It sounds like someone needs to teach these Ravagers what happens when they threaten innocent people. The crew began preparing their response, unaware that far across the galaxy, long-range sensors were detecting massive energy signatures moving toward Earth. The Ravagers had intercepted the transmission and were following the signal back to its source. Humanity was about to face its first alien contact, and it would not be peaceful. The emergency meeting room at Luna Station was filled with tension. Admiral Rosa Blackwood sat at the head of the long table, her dark eyes scanning the faces of Earth's top military leaders. The holographic display in the center of the room showed the alien transmission that had arrived just 12 hours ago. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Blackwood began, her voice calm but serious. We are no longer alone in the universe, and our first contact comes with a crisis. General Marcus Webb, head of Earth's Special Operations, leaned forward in his chair. He was a tall man with scars on his hands from years of combat training. Admiral, with respect, this could be a trap. We don't know anything about these aliens or their enemies. Blackwood nodded. That's a valid concern, General. But our analysis suggests otherwise. She gestured to the woman sitting to her left. Dr. Alina Vasquez has been studying the transmission. Alina, please share your findings. Dr. Vasquez stood up, activating a new section of the holographic display. The linguistic patterns in the message are extremely complex. It would be nearly impossible to fake this level of detail. The mathematical structures, the emotional undertones, the cultural refer in CES. Everything suggests this is genuine. Around the table, the other leaders studied the data. Kira Okafor, Earth's top military strategist, raised her hand. What do we know about these Ravagers? According to the transmission, Dr. Vasquez replied, they are a nomadic species that has been consuming star systems for over a century. They travel in large groups called hordes and strip entire planets of all resources and life. How many planets? Asked Ambassador Thane Kowalski, the diplomatic liaison. 47 complete star systems in the past 100 years, Dr. Vasquez answered. That's potentially hundreds of billions of lives. The room fell silent. The numbers were almost too large to understand. General Webb broke the silence. What makes us think we can fight them when no one else has? Admiral Blackwood activated another section of the display. Our xenobiology team has been analyzing the data about the Ravagers. They believe these creatures evolved on a world with very stable conditions. They rely on overwhelming numbers and biological advantages, but they may not be adaptable to unexpected tactics. Kira Okafor studied the information. You're suggesting they've never faced opposition from a species like us? Exactly, Blackwood replied. Humans evolved on Earth, a death world by galactic standards. Our planet has extreme weather, dangerous predators, diseases, and natural disasters. We developed in an environment that forced us to become adaptable, aggressive, and resourceful. Ambassador Kowalski looked concerned. Admiral, are you seriously considering military action against an unknown alien species? The political implications alone? The political implications of doing nothing are worse, Blackwood interrupted. If these Ravagers have consumed 47 star systems, they won't stop. Eventually, they'll find Earth. Dr. Vasquez added. The Quillians are offering a complete technology exchange. Their faster-than-light communication systems alone could advance our civilization by decades. Their shield technology could revolutionize our defenses. General Webb remains skeptical. What do we know about the Quillians themselves? How do we know they're telling the truth about being peaceful? Their message contained detailed technical specifications, Dr. Vasquez explained. We've analyzed their technology, and it's all civilian. Construction equipment, mining tools, communication systems, but no weapons. Their entire civilization appears to be built around creation and engineering, not destruction. Kira Okafor was studying tactical displays. It might explain why they can't fight the Ravagers. They literally don't know how to wage war. Admiral Blackwood stood up. Which brings us to the decision we need to make. Quillians are asking for help. They're offering everything they have in exchange for military assistance against an enemy. That's destroying their people. How long do we have to decide? Asked Ambassador Kowalski. According to their transmission, the Ravagers move systematically. Based on their pattern, they'll hit the next Quillian world within days. After that, they'll continue expanding outward. General Webb crossed his arms. And if we engage them militarily and lose, we could expose Earth's location to a species that destroys entire civilizations. They may find us anyway, Blackwood replied. At least this way, we have allies and advanced technology to help us fight. The debate continued for hours. Some leaders argued for immediate evacuation of Earth's outer colonies. Others suggested trying to negotiate with the Ravagers. A few proposed ignoring the alien message entirely. Ambassador Kowalski raised practical concerns. Even if we decide to help, how do we get there? The Quillian territory is on the other side of the galaxy. The Quillians have provided jump coordinates and technical data for long-range travel, Dr. Vasquez answered. Our engineers believe we can modify our ships to make the journey. General Webb looked at the star charts. How many ships could we send? How many people are we talking about risking? Admiral Blackwood had been preparing for this question. Full battle group. 12 ships, including our newest carriers, approximately 15,000 personnel. 15,000 people to fight an enemy that has destroyed 47 star systems. Kira Okafor sounded doubtful. Sometimes the size of the force matters less than how it's used, Blackwood replied. The Ravagers have never faced human military tactics. They specialize in asymmetric warfare, guerrilla fighting, and adaptive strategies. Room fell quiet again, as everyone considered the implications. They were talking about humanity's first contact with alien life, and it would be through warfare. Ambassador Kowalski spoke carefully. If we do this, we're not just helping the Quellians. We're announcing to the galaxy that humanity exists and that we're willing to fight. Oh, maybe that's not a bad thing, General Webb said surprisingly. If there are other species like the Ravagers out there, they should know that Earth won't be an easy target. Dr. Vasquez pulled up another section of data, or something else. The Quellian transmission included references to other species that had been destroyed by the Ravagers. We wouldn't just be saving the Quellians, we might be preventing future genocides. Kira Okafor was studying battle plans. Our Marines are trained for extreme environments. The Deathworld Corps has been preparing for scenarios exactly like this. Admiral Blackwood looked around the table. The way I see it, we have 3 options. We can evacuate Earth and run. We can ignore the message and hope the Ravagers never find us. Or we can do what humans do best. We can fight back. The vote was close, but the decision was unanimous among the military leaders. Ambassador Kowalski was the last to agree. If we're going to do this, he said, we need to do it right. Full commitment, best equipment, and our most experienced people. Admiral Blackwood nodded. Agreed. I'll be leading. The mission personally? General Webb stood up. I'll prepare the Deathworld Marines. If we're going to fight monsters, we'll send our best monster hunters. As the meeting ended, Dr. Vasquez remained behind to speak with Admiral Blackwood privately. Admiral, there's something I didn't mention in the meeting. The Quellian language has concepts for things we don't have words for. They have 17 different terms for peaceful coexistence, but no word for victory in the military sense. Blackwood considered this. What does that tell us? It tells us we might be the first species they've ever met that truly understands warfare. They're not just asking for help, they're asking us to teach them something they've never learned. Admiral Blackwood looked at the star chart showing the route to Quellian space. Then we'd better make sure we teach them well. The orders went out within hours. Earth's greatest military force began preparing for humanity's first interstellar war. None of them knew that they were already being watched by enemy scouts, or that their decision to help strangers would change the fate of the entire galaxy. The massive military shipyard orbiting Mars had never seen activity like this before. Captain Alex Morrison walked through the preparation bays, watching his soldiers get ready for humanity's first interstellar war. The Deathworld Marine Corps was Earth's most elite fighting force. And today, they would prove why. Morrison was a career soldier, built like a tank with arms covered in scars from training exercises. He had served in every dangerous environment on Earth, from the deep ocean, trenches to the volcanic peaks of active mountains. His Marines were cut from the same cloth. Listen up, people, Morrison called out to his assembled troops. We're not fighting humans anymore. We're going up against aliens that have destroyed entire civilizations. They think they're the scariest things in the galaxy. Let's show them what a real predator looks like. Lieutenant Zaro Conquo was checking her demolitions equipment nearby. She was small and quick, but her expertise with explosives made her one of the most dangerous soldiers in the unit. Captain, have we gotten the intel reports on Ravager biology? Just came in this morning, Morrison replied, activating a holographic display. These things are big, around 10 feet tall, have natural armor, razor claws, and acid blood. But they've got weaknesses too. The display showed detailed scans of Ravager anatomy. Sergeant Tom Riley, the unit's close-quarters combat specialist, studied the images with interest. Their joints look vulnerable, and that nerve cluster near the head. One good shot there should drop them. Morrison nodded. The Quellians provided detailed biological data. These creatures evolved as ambush predators on a world with limited resources. They're used to overwhelming weaker prey, not fighting someone who fights back. Chief Engineer Yuki Tanaka entered the briefing area, carrying several modified weapons. She was the team's technical expert, responsible for adapting human technology. With the new Quillian systems, Captain, you need to see what we've done with their shield generators, Tanaka said excitedly. We've integrated them with our kinetic weapons. The results are incredible. She activated a weapon that looked like a standard human rifle, but hummed with alien energy. The Quillian shields can be reversed. Instead of stopping projectiles, we can use them to accelerate our bullets to incredible speeds. A standard rifle round now hits with the force of a tank shell. Lieutenant Okonkwo whistled appreciatively. What about my explosives? Even better, Tanaka grinned. Their energy systems can supercharge conventional explosives. A hand grenade now has the power of a bunker buster bomb, Morrison picked up. One of the modified weapons, the Quillians never weaponize their own technology because they're pacifists. But humans see military applications in everything. The training facility next to the shipyard was running at full capacity. Morrison's Marines were practicing combat techniques against holographic Ravager drones. The simulations were based on actual combat data from destroyed Quillian colonies. Sergeant Riley was sparring with a holographic opponent twice his size. The simulated Ravager moved with insectoid speed, its claws slicing through the air where his head had been moments before. Riley rolled under its attack and came up with his combat knife, striking at the vulnerable nerve cluster. Good work, Sergeant, Morrison called out. But remember, these things hunt in packs. You'll never face just one. The simulation changed. Adding to more Ravager drones, Riley immediately switched tactics, using the environment to his advantage. He dove behind cover and used his modified rifle to take out the first target. Then threw one of Lieutenant Okonkwo's enhanced grenades at the others. That's what I'm talking about, Morrison said with satisfaction. Adaptability. These aliens have been winning because they fight the same way every time. We're going to show them what happens when they face an enemy that thinks outside the box. Dr. Alina Vasquez arrived at the training facility with updated intelligence reports. Captain Morrison, we've received more transmissions from Quellian space. The situation is worse than we thought. Morrison paused the training exercise. How? Much worse? The Ravagers aren't just consuming individual planets anymore. They're systematically destroying entire star systems. 3 more Quellian colonies have gone dark in the past 48 hours. Chief Engineer Tanaka looked up from her work. How is that possible? The energy requirements alone should be massive. That's what we're trying to figure out, Dr. Vasquez. Replied, the Quillians are sending us data from long-range sensors, but it doesn't make sense. The Ravagers seem to have developed some kind of new weapon. Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. What kind of weapon? We don't know. The colonies are being destroyed without any sign of ground invasion. No landing craft, no orbital bombardment, just ... gone. Complete destruction in a matter of minutes. Lieutenant Okonkwo stopped checking her equipment. Captain, if they can destroy entire worlds that quickly, what chance do we have? Morrison looked around at his Marines. These were the toughest soldiers humanity had ever produced, trained to fight in conditions that would kill most people. But they were still human, and the scale of what they were facing was beyond anything they had imagined. We have something. The other species didn't, Morrison said firmly. We have surprise. The Ravagers have never faced humans before. They don't know our tactics, our weapons, or our willingness to do whatever it takes to win. Chief Engineer Tanaka was studying the new intelligence data. Captain, there might be something else. The Quellian technology records show that the Ravagers are a hive mind. They think and act as one organism across their entire species. What does that mean for us? It means they're predictable. Hive minds are efficient, but they're not creative. They follow patterns. If we can disrupt those patterns, we might be able to confuse them. Sergeant Riley was cleaning his weapons nearby. Sounds like they've never faced guerrilla warfare. Hit-and-run tactics, improvised attacks, fighting dirty, that's not something a hive mind would expect. Morrison nodded. Exactly. Every species. they've fought has probably tried to meet them head-on in conventional battles. That's not how humans fight when we're outgunned. The preparation continued around the clock. Engineers worked to modify ships with Quellian technology, while Marines trained for combat scenarios unlike anything they had faced before. The fusion of human aggression with alien engineering was creating weapons and tactics that neither species could have developed alone. Admiral Blackwood arrived to inspect the preparations. She watched the Marines practicing their assault techniques and testing their new equipment. "How much longer do you need, Captain?" she asked Morrison. "It's ready as we can be, Admiral. The real test will come when we face them in actual combat." Blackwood studied the tactical displays showing the route to Quellian space. "The fleet will be ready to depart in 6 hours. Are your Marines prepared for extended space travel?" "Yes." "Ma'am, we've been training in zero gravity and confined spaces. These soldiers can fight anywhere." Dr. Vasquez approached with a final intelligence update. "Admiral, we've established communication with a Quellian survivor named Nala Saivan. She's coordinating resistance efforts on Threnal Prime, their nursery world." "How long does that world have?" "According to their calculations, less than 72 hours before the Ravager horde arrives." Morrison felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Somewhere across the galaxy, innocent people were counting on him and his Marines to save them from monsters they couldn't fight. "Admiral," he said, "my Marines are ready. We've trained for this our entire careers. Earth's children sleep safely because we stand guard. Now it's time to protect someone else's children." Lieutenant Okonkwo finished her equipment check and shouldered her pack. "Captain, the enhanced explosives are loaded and ready. If these Ravagers want to fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget." Sergeant Riley tested his modified rifle. "One more time. 47 star systems, billions of lives. Time to show these things what happens when they mess with innocent people." Chief Engineer Tanaka sealed the last of the weapon modifications. "All equipment is ready, Captain. Human engineering combined with Quellian technology. These aliens gave us the tools, and we turned them into something they never imagined." Morrison looked around at his team. They were about to embark on a mission that would either save a civilization or doom humanity to the same fate. But they were ready. Earth's most dangerous predators were going hunting, and their prey had never faced anything like them before. The countdown to departure had begun, and with it, humanity's first step onto the galactic stage as protectors of the innocent. The nursery world of Threnal Prime was beautiful from orbit. Blue oceans and green continents stretched beneath white clouds, home to 12 billion Quellian civilians. Most of them were children, being raised in the peaceful communities that the Quellian species was famous for throughout their sector of the galaxy. Nala Saivan stood in the Planetary Defense Center, her 6 arms working frantically at multiple control stations. She was Vex's sister, and like him, she had golden eyes that reflected her desperate determination.
"Oh."
The evacuation efforts were not going well. "We need more transport ships," she called out to her assistants. "The civilian freighters can't carry everyone off-world in time." One of her communications officers looked up from his station. "Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission from an unknown fleet. They're requesting permission to enter our system." Nala's feathers ruffled with worry. "Is it the Ravagers?" "No, ma'am. The energy signatures are completely different. They're transmitting in our language." The main screen activated, showing the image of a human woman in military uniform. Admiral Blackwood's face appeared, speaking carefully in translated Quellian. "This is Admiral Rosa Blackwood of the Earth Defense Forces. We received your distress signal and have come to provide military assistance. We're requesting coordinates to begin evacuation support." Nala stared at the screen in shock. "You actually came." "We gave our word," Admiral Blackwood replied. "How much time do we have?" "The Ravager horde will arrive in 18 hours, Nala answered. "We have been trying to evacuate the civilians, but we don't have enough ships. Brought transport vessels with us. Begin sending us your evacuation lists immediately. We also need tactical information about Ravager attack patterns." In space above the planet, the human fleet was impressive despite being outnumbered. 12 ships arranged in defensive formation, their hulls bristling with the new hybrid weapons that combined human aggression with Quellian technology. Captain Morrison was in the drop bay of the assault carrier, checking his Marines one final time. The soldiers looked ready for war, their armor modified with Quillian shield generators and their weapons humming with alien energy. "Listen up, Marines," Morrison announced. "This is what we trained for. Somewhere on this planet are 12 billion innocent people who can't protect themselves. Today we stand between them and the monsters." Lieutenant Okonkwo was distributing the enhanced explosives to her demolition teams. Remember, these aren't normal grenades anymore. One of these can take out a building. Use them wisely. Sergeant Riley was leading the close combat teams through final equipment checks. These Ravager drones are tough, but they've got weak points. Aim for the joints and nerve clusters. Don't waste ammunition on their armored sections. Chief Engineer Tanaka monitored the weapon systems from the ship's technical bay. All modifications are operating within normal parameters. The Quellian shield generators are responding perfectly to our control systems. Suddenly alarms began sounding throughout the fleet. The enemy had arrived. The Ravager horde emerged from hyperspace like a nightmare made real. Hundreds of organic ships, each one larger than the biggest human vessel. They looked more like living creatures than spacecraft, with pulsing surfaces and bioluminescent patterns running along their hulls. Admiral Blackwood watched from her command bridge as the enemy fleet took position around the planet. My God, there are so many of them. The Ravager ships moved with disturbing coordination, positioning themselves in a perfect sphere around Threnal Prime. They had done this hundreds of times before. Their efficiency was terrifying. Admiral called her tactical officer there, beginning some kind of scanning process. Energy readings are off the charts. On the planet's surface, Nala coordinated the evacuation from her command center. The human transport ships were working efficiently, loading thousands of Quellian civilians and carrying them to safety beyond the system. "Humans are better organized than our own people," one of her assistants observed. "They seem to understand emergency procedures instinctively." Nala watched the tactical displays showing both fleets. They come from a dangerous world. Crisis management is probably natural to them. In space, the first contact between human and Ravager forces was about to begin. The alien ships were starting their feeding process, extending organic tendrils toward the planet's surface to begin draining its core. Admiral Blackwood gave the order her crew had been waiting for. "All ships, engage the enemy. Show them what Earth's children are capable of." The battle erupted across the entire system. Human ships moved with tactics the Ravagers had never encountered before. Instead of the predictable formations that other species used, humans darted between enemy vessels like schools of fish avoiding predators. The modified weapons proved their worth immediately. Human missiles, enhanced with Quellian energy systems, tore through Ravager bioarmor that had resisted every other species' attacks. The kinetic weapons, accelerated by alien shield technology, punched holes completely through enemy ships. But the Ravagers adapted quickly. Their organic vessels began changing shape, growing additional armor and extending new weapon systems. The hive mind was learning from the human attacks and developing countermeasures. "They're evolving their defenses in real time," reported Admiral Blackwood's tactical officer. "Our advantage is decreasing." Morrison's Marines were already launching their ground assault. Drop pods filled with soldiers fell through the atmosphere toward areas where Ravager landing forces had touched down. The aliens were sending their drones to eliminate evacuation sites and prevent civilians from escaping. The first ground combat between humans and Ravagers took place in a Quellian city center. Morrison's squad landed amid a group of 10-foot-tall insectoid creatures that were hunting civilian families. "Engage," Morrison shouted. Opening fire with his modified rifle, the enhanced bullets struck the lead Ravager drone with devastating effect. The creature's natural armor, which had protected it from every Quellian weapon, shattered under the impact. Acidic blood sprayed across the street as the alien collapsed. The other Ravager drones turned toward the Marines with obvious surprise. They had never encountered resistance like this before. Lieutenant Okonkwo threw one of her enhanced grenades into the group of aliens. The explosion was massive, destroying 3 drones and damaging several others. "That's for all the innocent people you've killed," she yelled. Sergeant Riley engaged the survivors in close combat, using techniques developed for fighting Earth's most dangerous predators. His combat knife found the nerve clusters that Chief Engineer Tanaka had identified, dropping each alien. With precise strikes? These things are tough, Riley reported over the radio, but they're not used to fighting someone who fights back. The battle raged for hours. Human forces used hit-and-run tactics, appearing suddenly to attack Ravager positions, and then disappearing before the hive mind could coordinate a response. It was warfare unlike anything the aliens had ever faced. On the planet's surface, the evacuation continued under the protection of Morrison's Marines. Quellian families boarded human transport ships while soldiers held defensive positions against increasingly desperate Ravager attacks. Nala worked alongside human officers to coordinate the civilian movements. "Your people are remarkable," she told Captain Morrison during a brief lull in the fighting. "You fight like you're protecting your own families." "As far as we're concerned, we are," Morrison replied, reloading his weapon. "Innocent people are. Innocent people, no matter what species they belong to." The space battle continued above them, with Admiral Blackwood's fleet using every trick in the human military handbook. They used the planet's gravity well to slingshot around enemy ships, employed electronic warfare to confuse Ravager communications, and even rammed damaged human vessels into enemy formations. But the Ravagers had one advantage that was becoming increasingly apparent. They had overwhelming numbers, and they were willing to sacrifice any number of their own ships to achieve victory. "Admiral," her communications officer called out, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the lead Ravager vessel. They want to communicate." The main screen activated, showing the interior of an alien ship. The creature that appeared was unlike the drones that the Marines were fighting on the surface. This was clearly the intelligence controlling the entire horde. The Ravager Prime was massive, 20 feet tall with multiple arms ending in razor-sharp claws. Its eyes held an ancient intelligence, and when it spoke, its voice carried the weight of countless destroyed civilizations. "Unknown species," the Ravager Prime said in perfect Quellian. "You fight well, but you cannot save these people. We have consumed 47 star systems. We will consume this one, and then we will find your home world and consume that as well." Admiral Blackwood stepped forward, her face showing no fear despite the magnitude of the threat. "You're wrong about one thing. We're not an unknown species. We're humans, and we don't abandon innocent people to monsters." The Ravager Prime studied her with obvious interest. "Humans, your tactics are unusual. Your species shows promise. Perhaps we will keep some of your people alive when we harvest your world. You would make useful slaves." "Here's what we think of that offer," Blackwood replied, and gave the signal for a coordinated attack on the Prime's vessel. But as the human weapons struck the massive bioship, something unexpected happened. The Ravager Prime began to laugh, a sound that chilled everyone who heard it. "You amuse us, humans. But now you will see why no species has ever defeated the Ravager horde." The massive alien ship began to glow with an energy that dwarfed anything the humans had seen before. Their sensors showed power readings that seemed impossible, enough energy to destroy not just the planet but everything in the system. Planet Cracker weapon was charging, and there was no way to escape its range in time. Asterisk, 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 the Planet Cracker weapon was charging with terrible energy. Every sensor on the human fleet screamed warnings as power levels climbed beyond anything they had ever recorded. The massive Ravager Prime's bioship pulsed with deadly light, preparing to destroy Threnal Prime and everything around it. Admiral Blackwood stared at the readings on her command screen. "Long until that weapon fires." 12 minutes, Admiral?" Her tactical officer replied, his voice tight with fear. "We can't get the evacuation ships out of range in time." On the planet's surface, Captain Morrison watched the sky fill with ominous light. His Marines had successfully protected the evacuation sites, but now it looked like their sacrifice would be meaningless. The remaining Quellian civilians looked up at the growing energy field with terror in their golden eyes. Dr. Elena Vasquez was working frantically at her analysis station aboard the flagship. She had been studying every piece of data they had collected about the Ravagers during the battle. looking for any weakness they could exploit. "Admiral," she called out suddenly. "I found something in the Ravager biology data. The hive mind has a critical vulnerability." Blackwood rushed to her station. "What kind of vulnerability?" "The entire horde is controlled by a single consciousness. The Ravager Prime. If we can kill the Prime, the rest of them will lose coordination for several hours, long enough to destroy the entire fleet." Admiral Blackwood looked at the tactical display showing the Prime's massive bioship surrounded by hundreds of smaller vessels. "How do we get close enough to kill it? Our ships can't break through their defenses." Captain Morrison's voice crackled over the communication system from the planet's surface. "Admiral requests permission to attempt boarding action on the Prime's vessel." "Captain, that's suicide. That ship is 20 kilometers long and filled." "Ma'am, we're Deathworld Marines. Suicide missions are what we do best. And someone needs to protect these people." Lieutenant Okonkwo stepped forward. "Admiral, my enhanced explosives could cause internal damage that their bioarmor can't repair. If we can get inside that ship, we can tear it apart from within." "Sergeant." Riley checked his modified weapons. "We've been studying their biology all day. We know where to hit them to cause maximum damage." Chief Engineer Tanaka was monitoring the technical systems. "I can modify a transport ship to penetrate their biohull. The Quillian shield generators can be reversed to cut through organic matter." Admiral Blackwood realized this was their only chance. The evacuation ships were still too close to escape the planet cracker's range. Conventional weapons couldn't penetrate the Prime's defenses fast enough. "Do it," she ordered. "All available Marines to the assault transport. This is our one shot." Within minutes, Morrison's team was aboard a modified transport ship that hummed with hybrid human Quillian technology. The vessel's hull had been fitted with reverse polarity, shield generators that would slice through the Ravager bioship like a knife through flesh. "Remember," Morrison told his soldiers as they approached the massive alien vessel, "we're not trying to conquer this thing. We just need to find the Prime and kill it before that weapon fires." The transport ship struck the Ravager bioship's hull and immediately began cutting its way inside. The organic armor tried to seal around the intrusion, but the modified shields kept carving deeper into the alien structure. Inside the bioship, the environment was like something from a nightmare. The corridors were lined with pulsing flesh and dripping with acidic secretions. Strange organs beat in the walls like giant hearts. The air was thick with spores that would have killed any other species. But humans had evolved on Earth, eh? World where the very air could be toxic and every environment tried to kill them. Morrison's Marines activated their environmental suits and pushed deeper into the alien vessel. "This place reeks," complained Lieutenant Okonkwo as they moved through a corridor lined with what looked like digestive chambers. "Stay focused, Morrison," replied. "According to the bioscans, the Prime should be in the central control chamber." They encountered their first resistance when a group of Ravager drones emerged from side passages. These creatures were even larger than the ones on the planet's surface, adapted for fighting inside the bioship's confined spaces. Sergeant Riley engaged the first drone with his combat knife, using the creature's own momentum against it. The alien's claws scraped sparks off his armor as he drove the blade into its nerve cluster. Lieutenant Okonkwo threw one of her enhanced grenades down, side corridor where more drones were approaching. The explosion sent acidic blood spraying across the walls and filled the air with the screams of dying aliens. "Keep moving," Morrison shouted. "We have less than 8 minutes before that weapon fires." The team fought their way deeper into the bioship, facing increasingly desperate resistance. The Ravager Prime was clearly aware of their presence and was throwing everything it had at them. Chief Engineer Tanaka monitored her scanner as they advanced. "The central chamber is just ahead. But Captain, the energy readings are incredible. That thing is massive." They broke through the final barrier and entered a vast chamber that stretched beyond their sight. At the center, connected to the ship by thousands of organic cables, was the Ravager Prime itself. The creature was even more terrifying up close. 30 feet tall and covered in natural armor, it had multiple heads with rows of razor teeth. Many arms ended in claws that could tear through steel, and its eyes burned with the intelligence of a species that had destroyed countless worlds. So, the Prime spoke without turning toward them. "The little Deathworlders have come to die in person. How touching. Morrison raised his modified rifle. "We've come to stop you from killing innocent people." The Prime finally turned to face them, and its laugh echoed through the chamber like thunder. "Innocent? There's no such thing in this galaxy. There are only predators and prey, the strong and the weak, the living and the dead." "Wrong," Morrison replied, and opened fire. The enhanced bullet struck the Prime's armor, but barely scratched it. The creature was protected by layers of biometal that had evolved over millions of years. "My turn," the Prime said, and lunged. Forward with speed that belied its massive size, Morrison dove aside his claws. Longer than swords sliced through the air where he had been standing. Lieutenant Okonkwo rolled behind cover and began setting charges on the organic cables connecting the Prime to the ship's systems. Sergeant Riley attacked from the side, using his knowledge of Ravager biology to target weak points. Up. But the Prime was unlike the drones they had fought before. It was older, smarter, and far more dangerous. The battle was brutal and desperate. Morrison's Marines used every trick they had learned, every advantage their Deathworld upbringing had given them. They fought with the ferocity of humans protecting. They're young, using improvised weapons and refusing to give ground. "The weapon is almost charged," Chief Engineer Tanaka called out. 30 seconds. Lieutenant Okonkwo's explosives were finally in position. Charges set on the neural connections. "But I need to get closer to the Prime itself." Morrison realized what needed to be done. "Cover me." He charged directly at the Ravager Prime, drawing its attention away from Okonkwo. The creature's claws raked across his armor as he drove his combat knife toward the nerve cluster at the base of its primary head. The Prime caught him in its massive claws, lifting him off the ground. "Foolish human, you die for nothing." "No," Morrison gasped. "Die for something you'll never understand. I die for people who can't protect themselves." Lieutenant Okonkwo reached the Prime's central nervous system and placed her final charge. "Goodbye, you monster." The explosion tore through the Ravager Prime's body just as Morrison drove his knife into its brain. The creature's scream shook. The entire bioship, as its ancient consciousness, finally died. Across the Ravager fleet, hundreds of alien vessels suddenly went dark. The hive mind connection was severed. Leaving each ship confused and directionless, Admiral Blackwood didn't waste the opportunity. "All ships target the disabled vessels. Destroy everything." The human fleet systematically destroyed the helpless Ravager ships. Without the Prime's coordination, the aliens couldn't mount any organized defense. On the planet's surface, Kana watched the sky clear as the last of the enemy vessels exploded. The evacuation ships had saved millions of Quellian civilians, and the threat was finally over. Morrison's team made it back to their transport ship just as the bioship began to collapse around them. They had lost several good soldiers, but they had saved an entire world. Later, as the combined human-Quellian fleet regrouped, Admiral Blackwood received communications from across the galaxy. Other species had detected the battle and were sending their own distress calls to Earth. "It seems," she told her crew, "that the galaxy has a new reputation for humans. We're not just another species, we're the ones who fight back against the monsters." Nala approached Admiral Blackwood on the command bridge. "Admiral, the Quellian Confederacy wishes to propose a permanent alliance. We can provide technology and intelligence. You can provide the one thing we never learned, how to protect the innocent." Blackwood looked at the star chart showing dozens of other systems that had sent requests for help. "It looks like we're going to be busy. Galaxy is full of bullies who think might makes right. It's time to teach them about human values." The story ended with Earth's fleet preparing for their next mission, knowing that somewhere in the vast galaxy, innocent people were calling for help, and humanity would answer. Because that's what Deathworlders do. They protect those who cannot protect themselves. The lights of Nexus Prime Station flickered like dying stars against the black void of space. Ambassador Keel stood at the observation deck, her pale blue skin reflecting the soft glow of the navigation panels. The Valerian diplomat had served the Galactic Council for 20 years. But she had never seen anything like the reports flooding her communication system. 3 star systems had gone completely silent in the past month. Not just communications blackouts or technical failures, complete silence. As if entire worlds had simply stopped existing. Keels touched the holographic display with her long, slender fingers. The first system to go dark was New Haven, a mining colony with over 2 million inhabitants. The last transmission had been routine. Other reports, cargo manifests, children's birthday parties. Then nothing. "Ambassador, you need to see this," called Lieutenant Brock from across the communication center. The young Draconian officer's scales were pale with worry. His species prided themselves on being fearless warriors, but even Brock looked shaken. Keels walked over to his station. The screen showed a partial transmission from the Kepler 442 system. Static filled most of the recording, but fragments of panicked voices came through. "They're huge. The ships are alive. They're eating the stations. Send help, please. Anyone. They're consuming everything. The energy weapons aren't working. Nothing's working." And the transmission cut to silence. Keels felt a chill run down her spine. In 300 years of galactic peace, nothing like this had ever happened. The Council's protection had kept all member species safe from pirates, natural disasters, and territorial disputes. But this sounded like something else entirely. "Have you shown this to Commander Thax?" she asked. Brock's expression darkened. "He says it's probably equipment failure. It's maybe some pirates with stolen military tech. He won't authorize any investigation." Fleet's Commander Thax was the pride of the Draconian Empire. His species had once been great warriors, but centuries of peace had made them comfortable with routine patrols and ceremonial duties. Like most of the Council's military forces, they were trained for peacekeeping, not real warfare. Keel studied the star map again. The 3 dead systems formed a rough line pointing toward the galaxy's inner worlds. If something was moving through space, destroying everything in its path, it was heading toward the most populated sectors. "What about the other species?" asked. "Have the ethereals detected anything with their long-range sensors? They say their meditation networks show disturbances in the cosmic harmony, whatever that means," Brock replied. "The Crystalline Collective reports some strange energy readings, but they think it's just solar flare activity." Keels shook her head. The galaxy's most advanced species were so focused on their peaceful pursuits that they couldn't recognize a real threat. The ethereals spent their time in philosophical contemplation. The crystalline studied mathematical perfection. Oceanic Federation was busy with their underwater cities and poetry contests. None of them remembered how to fight. A real war. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Keels activated her personal communicator, and a hologram appeared showing a gruff human face. The man looked tired and scared. "This is Captain Alex Torres of the merchant vessel Starbound," the message began. "I'm broadcasting this on all emergency frequencies. I just received a message from an old friend in the Outer Rim. Rico Vance, smuggler and information broker. He barely escaped the destruction of Haven Colony 3 weeks ago." The hologram flickered, as if the transmission was coming from very far away. Rico's message was short, but it scared me more than anything I've heard in 20 years of space. "Travel," he said, and I quote, "They eat planets, Alex. They eat everything. The ships are alive and they're learning. The Council won't listen because they can't believe it. But you humans know about monsters. You're our only hope." The message continued with coordinates and technical data, but Keels was already thinking, humans, the galaxy's strangest species. They came from a world so dangerous that most civilized beings couldn't survive there for more than a few hours. A planet where the weather could kill you, the animals hunted in packs, and even the plants were poisonous. The Council had spent decades trying to civilize humanity. They banned most of Earth's military technology, calling it primitive and unnecessarily destructive. Human weapons use chemical explosives and metal projectiles instead of clean energy beams. Their ships were built like flying fortresses instead of elegant exploration vessels. Most Council members found humans disturbing. They were too aggressive, too unpredictable, too willing to fight. In a galaxy that had forgotten warfare, humanity seemed like a dangerous relic from a more violent age. But now, As Keels looked at the reports of entire worlds being consumed by unknown attackers, she wondered if the galaxy's attitude toward humans had been a mistake. She walked back to the main display and pulled up the long-range sensor data. Deep space monitoring stations had detected unusual movement in the void between star systems. Large objects moving at impossible speeds, but the energy signatures were unlike anything in the Council's databases. Brock, I want you to run a full analysis of these sensor readings. Look for patterns, movement vectors, anything that might tell us what we're dealing with. Yes, Ambassador. But Commander Thax has already ordered the sensor technicians to focus on normal shipping lanes. He says we're wasting resources on phantom readings. Keels closed her eyes and tried to think. 3 systems destroyed, millions of beings dead or missing. And the Council's military leadership was treating it like a minor technical problem. She opened her personal files and found Captain Torres's contact information. The human had sent his message through black market communication networks, which meant he was probably operating outside official channels. But right now, unofficial channels might be the only way to get real information. I'm going to contact this human captain, she told Brock. Keep monitoring the deep space sensors. If anything else happens, I want to know immediately. Ambassador, are you sure that's wise? The Council has strict protocols about dealing with unregistered human vessels. Keels looked out at the stars. Again, somewhere out there, something was destroying entire civilizations. The Council's protocols seemed less important than survival. Sometimes wisdom means breaking the rules, Lieutenant. As she prepared to send a message to Captain Torres, the main display lit up with an emergency alert. Another star system had gone silent. The Arcturus colonies, home to 12 million beings, had stopped transmitting. The pattern was becoming clear. Whatever was out there, it was moving faster now, consuming worlds at an increasing pace. And it was heading toward the galaxy's core, where billions of beings lived in peaceful ignorance of the approaching nightmare. Keels began typing her message to the human captain. The galaxy might not be ready to listen, but she was starting to believe that humanity might be the only species that could understand what they were truly facing in the depths of space. Something ancient and hungry continued its relentless advance toward the heart of civilization. The abandoned mining station floating near Titan looked like a graveyard of metal and broken dreams. Captain Alex Torres guided his ship through the debris field, following coordinates that had been passed through a dozen different smugglers and black market dealers. This was the kind of place where people met when they didn't want the Galactic Council. Watching, inside the station's main cargo bay, a strange group had gathered. Lena Vasquez sat cleaning her military rifle, her scarred face showing years of hard fighting. The former Earth Defense Marine had turned mercenary after the Council banned most human military units. Her reputation for getting impossible jobs done had spread across the outer colonies. Dr. Marcus Webb hunched over a portable laboratory setup, studying tissue samples that glowed with an eerie green light. The xenobiologist had been kicked out of the Council's research program for studying dangerous biological warfare applications. His crime had been trying to understand how different species could be used as weapons. Jorik, Steelborn, a massive man with arms like tree trunks, welded broken metal plates back together. The asteroid belt mining foreman had lost 3 mining stations and 200 workers to corporate wars. He understood that sometimes violence was the only way to protect what mattered. So what's this about Torres? Lena asked, not looking up from her weapon. Messi said something about the Council finally admitting they need us. Torres activated a holographic projector. Images of destroyed space stations and dead worlds filled the air above them. 5 star systems are completely gone. It's not just damaged or evacuated. Gone, like something ate them. Dr. Webb looked up from his samples. These tissue fragments came from a survivor ship. The crew was found floating in an escape pod near the Vega system. Most of them were dead, but the ship's computer had recorded everything. The hologram changed to show massive organic shapes moving through space. The ships looked alive, their surfaces pulsing like beating hearts. Smaller creatures swarmed around them like insects around a hive. The survivors called them devourers. Torres continued. They attack without warning, consume everything organic and metal, then move on. The Council's energy weapons can't hurt them. Their hulls adapt to any energy-based attack within minutes. Jorik stopped welding and stared at the images. Big are these things. The largest ones are bigger than space stations, maybe bigger than small moons, and they're heading toward the inner systems. Alina finally looked up from her rifle. What does this have to do with us? The Council made it clear they don't want human military help. We're too primitive for their civilized warfare. Torres smiled grimly. That's about to change. Ambassador Keels contacted me yesterday. She's convinced some council members that they need to try something different. Today, she's presenting a proposal to the full council session. The group exchanged looks. The idea of the council asking for human military help seemed impossible. For 300 years, they had worked to limit human weapons and tactics. Earth's ships were required to carry only defensive systems. Human soldiers could only serve in peacekeeping roles. There's more, Torres said. Dr. Webb has been studying the devourer tissue samples. Tell them what you found. Webb activated his own display, showing cellular structures that moved and changed shape. These organisms are unlike anything in our databases. We can adapt their biology in real time to counter different types of attacks. Energy weapons cause them to develop energy-resistant armor. Radiation makes them stronger. Poison feeds them. But Alina sensed there was more to the story. But they struggle with chaos. Their adaptation takes time and requires patterns too. Analyze. Random, unpredictable attacks confuse their biological responses. Chemical explosives, kinetic weapons, guerrilla tactics, all the things the Council calls primitive warfare, might be exactly what we need. Jorik laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Mean our barbaric human weapons might actually work? It's possible. The Devourers have been consuming advanced civilizations for who knows how long. They've learned to counter sophisticated energy weapons and organize military tactics. But Earth's weapons and strategies might be something they've never encountered before. Torres looked at each of them. Here's the plan. In 2 hours, Ambassador Keels is presenting evidence to the Council and asking them to lift the restrictions. On human military assets, if they agree, we need to be ready to prove that humans can do what their advanced species cannot. And if they don't agree, Alina asked, then we do it anyway. Because if these Devourers reach the core worlds, billions of people are going to die. The group spent the next hour planning. Alina would contact her mercenary networks and start assembling combat units. Jorik would reach out to the mining unions and get access to industrial explosives and heavy equipment. Dr. Webb would continue analyzing Devourer biology to find weaknesses as they worked. Torres received a message from Ambassador Keels. Council session was beginning on Nexus Prime. Ambassador Keels stood before the greatest gathering of species in galactic history. The chamber was a marvel of architecture, with floating platforms for each species' representatives. Ethereals glowed with soft light on their crystal pedestals. The draconian delegation sat in formation, their scales gleaming. Oceanic representatives floated in water-filled spheres. Honored delegates, Keels began. We face a threat unlike any in recorded history. The evidence is undeniable. 5-star systems have been completely consumed by an unknown enemy.
Ow.
Millions of our citizens are dead or missing. Commander Thax stood up from the military section. Ambassador Keels, while these incidents are concerning, we must not panic. Our preliminary investigations suggest equipment failures or perhaps organized pirate activity. The Council's military forces are more than capable of handling any threat. With respect, Commander, your preliminary investigation is wrong. Keels activated the holographic display, showing the recordings from the destroyed systems. These are not pirates. These are biological weapons of unprecedented scale and intelligence.
Ow.
The chamber filled with sounds of distress as delegates saw the images of devourer ships consuming entire space stations. The elegant ethereals dimmed their light in horror. The crystalline beings' geometric forms trembled. What you're seeing, Keels continued, has adapted to counter every weapon system in our arsenal. Energy weapons, plasma cannons, particle beams, all useless. These creatures learn and adapt faster than we can modify our tactics. A delegate from the Oceanic Federation spoke up, her voice bubbling through the water sphere's communication system. "What do you propose we do, Ambassador?" "Our scientists say these creatures are impossible to defeat with current technology." Keels took a deep breath. This was the moment that would either save the galaxy or end her career. "I propose we activate dormant human military assets and give them temporary authority to engage these threats using their conventional warfare doctrine." The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted in dozens of languages. The ethereal's light flickered wildly. Several crystalline beings actually cracked from stress. Commander Thax's voice cut through the noise. "Absolutely not. Human military doctrine is barbaric and unpredictable. Their weapons are crude and destructive. Giving them military authority would be like releasing wild animals in a peaceful garden." Commander Keels replied calmly, "Our peaceful garden is being eaten by monsters. Perhaps it's time to call on those who know how to fight monsters." Dr. Nex, the chief scientist from the Ethereal Collective, floated forward. "Ambassador Keels, human warfare is based on destruction and chaos. How can such primitive methods succeed where our advanced technology has failed?" "Because," came a new voice from the chamber's communication system. "Sometimes primitive methods work better than advanced ones." Dr. Webb's voice filled the chamber as his analysis appeared on the main display. "The devourer organisms adapt by studying and countering organized patterns. They've encountered thousands of advanced civilizations and learned to defeat their sophisticated weapons. But they've never faced the chaotic, unpredictable nature of human warfare." The chamber fell silent as delegates studied Webb's biological analysis. The data was clear. Devourer adaptation required time and pattern recognition. Chaos and randomness created gaps in their defensive systems. Commander Thax stood again. "Even if this analysis is correct, unleashing human military power could destabilize the entire galactic order. We've spent centuries creating peace through controlled, civilized conflict resolution." "Peace?" Keels asked quietly. "Commander, 5 star systems are gone. The Centauri sector is next in the Devourer's path. It's home to over 1 billion beings. How many civilizations must die before we admit that our peaceful methods aren't working?" The voting began immediately. Species after species cast their decisions. The Draconians voted against, fearing loss of military prestige. The Ethereals voted for, influenced by Dr. Webb's scientific evidence. Crystallines calculated probabilities and voted for. The Oceanics debated for an hour before voting against. As the votes were counted, long-range sensors detected new movement in the outer systems. Devourers were accelerating, their massive bioships heading directly toward the Centauri colonies. The final vote came down to a single delegate, Ambassador Keels herself, representing the Valerian diplomatic corps. "I vote yes," she said simply. "May the ancestors forgive us if we're wrong and save us if we're right." The motion passed by 1 vote. For the first time in 3 centuries, human military assets were authorized for unrestricted combat operations in the cargo bay near Titan. Captain Torres received the message. Alina smiled grimly as she checked her weapons. Jorik powered up his mining equipment. Dr. Webb sealed his biological samples. The galaxy had called on its Deathworlders. Now they had to prove they were worth the risk. Asterisk. Asterisk. The UES Retribution looked like a flying fortress compared to the sleek council ships around it. Captain Alex Torres stood on the bridge of the 200-year-old dreadnought, watching his ragtag fleet prepare for battle. 23 ships in total, none of them designed for what they were about to face. "Captain, we're getting readings on the Devourer fleet," reported Lieutenant Sam Blake from the sensor station. "They're bigger than the reports suggested." The main screen lit up with an image that made even the hardened human crew fall silent. The lead bioship was massive beyond imagination, its organic hull pulsing with dark energy. Smaller creatures, each the size of a destroyer, moved around it like a living cloud. "How big is that thing?" Torres asked. "Computer estimates it's roughly the size of Luna, sir. Maybe bigger." Commander Lisa Hartwell's voice crackled over the communication system. From her experimental corvette Stormcrow, "Alex, My sensors are showing at least 50 smaller bioships. This isn't a raiding party. This is an invasion fleet.
Ow.
Torres looked around his bridge crew. They were volunteers from across human space, former military officers who had been forced into retirement by council regulations, merchant captains who had lost friends to pirate attacks, engineers who had spent decades maintaining ships instead of building weapons. All ships. This is Torres. We knew this wasn't going to be easy. The council's best fleets couldn't scratch these things with energy weapons, but we've got something they don't have. What's that, sir? Came a voice from one of the mining ships. Know how to fight dirty? The Devourer fleet moved with disturbing grace through space. The massive lead ship, which the humans had designated Alpha Prime, seemed to scan the approaching human vessels. Smaller bioships broke away from the main formation, moving to intercept. Lena, you ready? Torres called to the mercenary commander. On the converted cargo hauler Warhammer. Born ready? Captain. My boys are loaded for bear with everything we could carry. Industrial explosives, mining charges, and some special surprises we picked up from the asteroid belt. Lena Vasquez checked her tactical display. Her ship carried 40 mercenaries, armed with weapons that the Council had banned decades ago. Chemical explosives, kinetic rifles, and close combat gear designed for boarding actions. Everything the civilized galaxy considered too brutal for modern warfare. Jorik, how are your mining crews doing? Torres asked. The gruff voice of Jorik Steelborn came through the communication system, ready to show these aliens what real work looks like. We've got enough industrial charges to crack an asteroid in half. If these bioships can eat energy, let's see how they handle good old-fashioned explosions. Dr. Marcus Webb was aboard the research vessel Galileo, monitoring the approaching enemy fleet. His sensors were tracking the bioships' behavior patterns, looking for weaknesses in their adaptive systems. Captain Torres, I'm seeing something interesting. The bioships are trying to scan our weapons, but they seem confused. Their adaptation systems are designed to counter energy-based attacks. They don't know what to make of our chemical explosives and kinetic weapons. Good. Let's keep them confused. All ships, implement tactical plan. Chaos. No predictable attack patterns. Make it impossible for them to figure out what we're doing. The human fleet spread out in seemingly random directions. Mining ships accelerated toward the enemy using gravity slings around asteroids. Military vessels feinted attacks, then changed course at the last second. Merchant ships released cargo, containers that drifted on ballistic trajectories. The first bioship to engage was roughly the size of a council cruiser. Its surface rippled with organic sensors as it approached the mining vessel Iron Mountain. The alien ship fired living projectiles that moved like guided missiles. This is Captain Roy Nash on Iron Mountain. Taking fire from organic weapons, they're trying to latch onto our hull. Use the mining charges, Roy. Close-range detonation. Nash's ship released a spread of industrial explosives, each one timed to detonate at different intervals. To bioships. Surface began to adapt, hardening against the first explosion. But before it could complete the process, 6 more charges exploded in rapid succession. The alien vessel shuddered, its organic hull torn open by the chaotic sequence of explosions. Green fluid leaked into space as the bioship's adaptive systems struggled to cope with the random damage patterns. Direct hit. The mining charges work. The bioship is damaged and pulling back. But the victory was short-lived. More bioships swarmed toward the human fleet, and Alpha Prime began to move forward with terrifying purpose. Elena's ship, Warhammer, engaged to smaller bioships simultaneously. Her mercenaries used magnetic grapples to attach explosive charges directly to the alien hulls. The bioships tried to adapt, growing armor plates over the attachment points. But Elena's people detonated the charges before the adaptation could complete. This is like fighting in zero-G construction sites. She reported, these things adapt fast, but they need time. Hit them quick and random, and they can't keep up. Commander Hartwell's Corvette Stormcrow tested the new kinetic weapons against a medium-sized bioship. The alien vessel's hull hardened against the first kinetic rounds, but the follow-up shots used different materials and velocities. The kinetic rounds are working, but barely. These things learn fast. We need to keep changing our approach. Dr. Webb was monitoring the battle from his research ship, tracking how the bioships adapted to different attack methods. Captain Torres, I'm seeing a pattern. The bioships share information through some kind of biological network. When one learns to counter an attack, they all learn. How long does the learning process take? For energy weapons, almost instantly. For our weapons, about 30 to 40 seconds. But once they adapt, the adaptation spreads to the entire fleet within minutes. Torres realized the terrible math of their situation. The human fleet had maybe one chance to use each type of weapon before the entire Devourer fleet became immune to it. After that, their technological advantage would disappear. Listen carefully. We've got maybe one good shot with each weapon type before they adapt. Make every shot count. The battle became a desperate race against biological adaptation. Human ships fired nuclear torpedoes that punched through bioship holes before the aliens could develop radiation shielding. Mining crews detonated shaped charges that focused explosive force in ways the bioships couldn't predict. Alina led the most dangerous part of the operation. Her boarding teams used modified construction mechs to break into damaged bioships, planting nuclear charges inside their organic cores. This is Alina. I'm inside one of these things. It's like being inside a living creature. The walls are moving. And there's some kind of immune system trying to attack us. Plant the charges and get out, Torres ordered. Already done. 30 seconds to detonation. The bioship exploded from within, its organic structure unable to contain the nuclear explosion. But even as it died, the other bioships were learning. From its destruction, developing internal defenses against boarding actions, Alpha Prime had remained at the edge of the battle, watching and learning. Now, it moved forward with deadly purpose. Its massive bulk dwarfed even the largest human ships. Its surface was covered with new adaptations based on everything it had observed. Captain Alpha Prime is targeting us directly, reported Lieutenant Blake. The massive bioship fired a weapon unlike anything they had seen before. Instead of living projectiles, it released a cloud of organic matter that moved like an intelligent swarm. Evasive maneuvers, all power to engines. The Retribution twisted through space, trying to avoid the approaching bioweapon. But the organic swarm followed every move, learning their evasion patterns and adapting its approach. Sir, the swarm is going to hit us in 20 seconds. Torres looked at his crew. They had fought well, but they were facing an enemy that learned from every attack, every maneuver, every strategy. The bioships were becoming immune to human weapons with each passing minute. All ships prepare for ramming speed. If we can't outthink them, we'll outstubborn them. Captain, that's suicide. Hartwell protested over the communication system. Maybe, but it's also something they won't expect. These bioships have been fighting advanced civilizations for who knows how long. But I bet they've never faced opponents crazy enough to ram them with nuclear warheads. The human fleet began its final charge toward Alpha Prime. Mining ships, military vessels, and merchant craft all accelerated toward the massive bioship. Some carried nuclear warheads, loaded with industrial charges. A few were simply planning to ram at maximum velocity. Alpha Prime's surface rippled with confusion as its sensors tried to understand what the humans were doing. The bioship's adaptation systems were designed to counter weapons and tactics, not suicidal desperation. As the human ships closed the distance, Torres made a decision that would change everything. He activated the fleet's emergency broadcast system, sending human military data to every species in the galaxy. This is Captain Torres to all Council forces. We're transmitting our weapon specifications, tactical doctrines, and combat strategies. Use them. Modify them. These bioships can adapt to energy weapons, but they struggle with chaos and unpredictability. The transmission reached Council fleets across the galaxy. Draconian commanders began retrofitting their ships with kinetic weapons. Crystalline mathematicians calculated optimal firing patterns for chemical explosives. Even the peaceful ethereals started learning the human art of unpredictable warfare. But in the Centauri system, the battle was reaching its climax. Alpha Prime fired everything it had at the approaching human fleet, filling space with organic weapons and biomatter clouds. Torres watched his ships disappear one by one under the massive alien assault. But each human vessel that died bought precious seconds for the others to get closer to their target. The Retribution shuddered as organic weapons struck its hull. Warning lights flashed across the bridge as systems failed. Doors kept the ship on course toward Alpha Prime's massive bulk. 10 seconds to impact, reported Lieutenant Blake. "It's been an honor serving with you all," Torres said to his crew. ***, the explosion of the UES Retribution lit up space like a dying star. Captain Torres had rammed his ship into Alpha Prime's hull, detonating every nuclear warhead aboard. The massive bioship shuddered, its organic surface torn open by the blast. But it continued moving forward. On the bridge of the Stormcrow, Commander Lisa Hartwell watched the sacrifice of her friend, with tears in her eyes. But there was no time to mourn. The battle was far from over, and something incredible was happening across the galaxy. "Commander, we're receiving transmission confirmations from over 40 different species," reported her communication officer. "They're all requesting copies of our tactical data." Human military broadcasts had reached every corner of civilized space. Captain Torres' final transmission was spreading like wildfire through the Council's communication networks. And species that had never worked together were suddenly sharing weapons technology and battle plans. "Ma'am, the Draconian Third Fleet is requesting specifications for kinetic weapons. They want to retrofit their ships immediately." Hartwell smiled grimly. Commander Thax had spent years calling human weapons primitive. Now his people were begging to learn how to use them. "Send them everything we have, and patch me through to the Crystalline Collective. Their mathematical precision, combined with our chaos theory, might give us an edge." Across the galaxy, the response was immediate and desperate. The elegant Draconian cruisers began installing crude kinetic cannons alongside their energy weapons. The crystalline beings used their geometric perfection to calculate optimal explosion patterns for human style. Chemical charges. On the ethereal homeworld, the peaceful philosophers did something they had never done before. They began studying the art of war. Their telepathic abilities allowed them to coordinate chaotic battle strategies across vast distances. Even the Oceanic Federation, despite their peaceful nature, began converting their exploration vessels into fighting ships. Their fluid-based technology proved surprisingly effective at creating unpredictable weapon systems. But the most surprising response came from Dr. Marcus Webb aboard the research vessel Galileo. While the battle raged around him, he had been analyzing captured Devourer tissue samples. What he discovered changed everything. "This is Dr. Webb to all human vessels. I've made a breakthrough. The Devourers aren't just random destroyers running from something." Elena Vasquez, still leading boarding parties against the smaller bioships, paused in her assault. "The tissue samples show signs of extreme adaptation stress. These creatures have been modifying themselves for millions of years, not to attack, but to survive. They're refugees, not conquerors." Webb's research data flooded the communication networks. The Devourer bioships weren't just consuming matter for food or resources. They were collecting genetic information, storing the biological patterns of every species they encountered. "They're trying to preserve something," Webb continued. "Every species they've consumed, every world they've stripped bare, they've kept records of it all. They're like a living library of extinct civilizations." Commander Hartwell processed this information while dodging organic weapons fire. "If they're preservers, why are they destroying everything?" "Because they're terrified." Deep space sensors are picking up something approaching from the galactic edge, something that makes the Devourer fleet look like a scouting party. The revelation sent shockwaves through the combined human and Council forces. If the Devourers were running from something worse, what did that mean for the galaxy? Admiral Kate Morrison chose that moment to arrive with the Earth Defense Force's hidden fleet. The EU's vengeance appeared at the edge of the system, followed by dozens of ships that officially didn't exist. For 3 centuries, Earth had been building a secret deep space navy hidden from Council oversight. This is Admiral Morrison to all forces. We've been monitoring the situation. It's time to show the galaxy what humans do best. The Earth fleet was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. The ships were built for war, not exploration. They carried weapons that had been banned for centuries: nuclear torpedo launchers, kinetic bombardment systems, and experimental energy weapons that combined human engineering with captured alien technology. "Admiral, we've got a problem," Hartwell reported. "The Devourers aren't our real enemy. They're running from something worse, I know, Commander." "Oh, our long-range sensors detected it an hour ago. Multiple objects approaching from dark space. They're big, they're fast, and they're not organic." The combined fleet began a new strategy. Instead of trying to destroy the Devourers, they started trying to communicate with them. The Ethereals used their telepathic abilities to reach out to the bioships. Collective consciousness. Elena's boarding teams found themselves in a strange situation. Instead of planting explosives, they were trying to establish communication with the bioship's internal systems. The organic corridors pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that seemed almost like a language. "This is Elena. I'm inside one of the medium bioships. The walls are showing me pictures. Images of dead galaxies, consumed worlds, and something dark moving between the stars." Dr. Webb worked frantically to decode the biological communication system. The Devourers had been trying to warn the galaxy, but their method of communication involved consuming and analyzing other species. They couldn't understand why the galaxy's inhabitants were resisting their attempts to preserve them. "I've got partial translation working," Webb reported. "The bioships are showing us their memories. They've been fleeing across the universe for millions of years. Their original galaxy was consumed by something they called the Void Reapers. The name sent chills through every species in the fleet. The Void Reapers were ancient machines that traveled between galaxies, consuming all life and converting it into energy. They had destroyed dozens of galaxies across the universe, and now they were approaching the Milky Way." "Admiral, Morrison made the decision that would define humanity's role in galactic history. All human vessels prepare to offer alliance terms to the Devourer fleet. We're not fighting destroyers anymore. We're fighting fellow survivors." The negotiation took place in the most unlikely setting imaginable. Inside Alpha Prime's organic command center, Captain Torres had somehow survived the nuclear explosion. His ship's bridge had been consumed by the bioship's healing systems. But instead of killing him, the organic matter had kept him alive. Elena led a rescue team into the massive bioship's heart. They found Torres connected to a web of organic cables. He was conscious, but changed. His mind linked to the Devourer collective consciousness. "Elena, I can see what they've seen," Torres whispered. "Entire galaxies turned to dust. Billions of species extinct. The Void Reapers don't just kill. They erase everything that ever existed." Through Torres' connection, the humans began to understand the full scope of the threat. The Devourers had been collecting genetic samples and cultural records not out of malice, but out of desperate hope. They were trying to preserve something of the civilizations they encountered before the Void Reapers. Arrived, Dr. Webb analyzed the new data flowing through the biolink. The Void Reapers will arrive in approximately 18 hours. Their advanced scouts are already entering the outer system. Admiral Morrison coordinated the most unlikely alliance in galactic history. Human weapons specialists worked alongside draconian engineers to modify bioship hulls with kinetic armor. Crystalline mathematicians calculated optimal formation patterns for the combined organic and mechanical fleet. The Ethereals established permanent telepathic links between human commanders and Devourer consciousness nodes. For the first time in millions of years, the bioships had allies who understood their mission. Elena emerged from Alpha Prime carrying genetic samples from a dozen extinct species. The Devourers have been carrying the last remnants of destroyed civilizations for millions of years. They're not monsters. They're the galaxy's memory. The combined fleet began preparing for the real battle. Human ships integrated Devourer bioarmor that could adapt to energy weapons. The bioships installed human-designed kinetic weapons that could punch through mechanical armor. Commander Hartwell found herself in command of a hybrid cruiser, half human technology and half living bioship. The organic systems responded to her thoughts while the mechanical weapons provided the destructive power humanity was known for. "This is impossible," she muttered, watching her ship's living hull repair battle damage in real time. "Impossible is what humans do best," Admiral Morrison replied over the communication system. "We've got 17 hours to turn this mixed fleet into a fighting force capable of stopping galaxy-killing machines." The preparation was unlike anything in recorded history. Human engineers learned to work with living metal. Devourer bioships practiced formations with mechanical vessels. The peaceful species of the Council found themselves learning not just human weapons, but human philosophy. Jorik, Steelborn, the mining foreman, summed up the situation perfectly. "We're about to fight machines that eat galaxies, using ships that are half alive and half dead, with allies we were trying to kill yesterday. This is either going to be the greatest victory in history or the most spectacular failure." As the combined fleet took position at the edge of the system, long-range sensors detected the approaching Void Reaper advance force. The machines were vast, their hulls reflecting no light. Moving through space like holes in reality itself, Admiral Morrison opened communication to the entire fleet. "In 18 hours, we face an enemy that has destroyed countless civilizations. But they've never faced Deathworlders fighting alongside the very species they thought they had already conquered. Today we show the universe that some things are worth dying for." The Void Reapers emerged from dark space like nightmares made real. Their massive forms blocked out entire star fields, mechanical constructs so large they seemed to bend reality around them. Admiral Kate Morrison watched from the bridge of the UES Vengeance as her sensors tried to measure the approaching enemy. "Fleet! How many?" she asked her tactical officer. 17 confirmed contacts, Admiral. "The largest one is roughly the size of a small planet. The energy readings are off our scales." Captain Torres, still connected to Alpha Prime's biosystems, felt the terror radiating from the Devourer collective consciousness. Through the organic link, he experienced memories spanning millions of years, galaxy after galaxy consumed by these same machines, entire civilizations erased as if they had never existed. "They don't just destroy," he reported to the combined fleet. "They unmake things. Every planet they touch becomes empty space. Every species they encounter is deleted from existence." Commander Lisa Hartwell gripped the controls of her hybrid ship, feeling the living hull pulse with nervous energy. Around her, the strangest fleet in galactic history prepared for battle. Human dreadnoughts flew alongside organic bioships. Crystalline mathematical vessels moved in perfect formation with chaotic draconian fighters. "All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. We face an enemy that has never been defeated, but they've also never faced what we've become. Today, we fight not as separate species, but as one galaxy united." The Void Reapers moved with terrifying purpose. Their lead ship, a construct the size of Earth's moon, began charging weapons that glowed with the light of dead stars. Smaller machine units, each larger than a council cruiser, swarmed around it like mechanical insects. Elena Vasquez prepared her boarding teams for what might be the last battle of their lives. Her mercenaries carried weapons designed by human engineers and grown by Devourer biotechnology. Chemical explosives that could adapt and change, kinetic rounds that learned from each shot fired. This is Elena to all boarding parties. "We're going into machines that have been killing for millions of years, but we've got something they don't expect. We've got humans who refuse to stay dead, and aliens who've learned how to fight dirty." Dr. Marcus Webb worked frantically in his laboratory, now integrated with Devourer biosystems. He was creating something that had never existed before. A biological virus designed to attack mechanical systems. The hybrid technology was beyond anything either species could have created alone. "Admiral, I've got a weapon ready. It's a biomechanical virus that should confuse their adaptive systems. But I need to get it into their central command matrix." The first exchange of fire lit up the void between galaxies. The Void Reapers launched weapons that tore holes in space itself, while the combined fleet responded with everything from nuclear missiles to living projectiles that thought for themselves. Jork Steelborn commanded a mining ship that had been transformed into a mobile weapon platform. His industrial charges were now guided by crystalline mathematics and powered by ethereal energy manipulation. The explosions they created were works of art and destruction combined. Direct hit on Reaper Unit 7, he reported. But it's already adapting. The whole damage is healing itself. The battle quickly became a nightmare of adaptation and counter-adaptation. The Void Reapers modified their defenses to counter human kinetic weapons, so the Devourer bioships grew new types of projectiles. When the machines learned to absorb energy attacks, the crystalline vessels created geometric patterns that focused explosive force in ways that couldn't be predicted. Alpha Prime moved through the battle like a living mountain, its massive bulk, absorbing punishment that would have destroyed any normal ship. Captain Torres, linked to its consciousness, felt every hit like a physical blow. But he also felt something else. Hope. The Void Reapers are confused, he reported. They've never encountered biological and mechanical cooperation before. Their analysis systems can't handle our hybrid tactics. Admiral Morrison seized the moment. All ships, implement maximum chaos protocol. No patterns, no predictable attacks. Make it impossible for them to adapt. The galaxy's fleet became a storm of controlled madness. Human ships fired randomly while Draconian vessels provided precision strikes. Oceanic craft flowed like liquid metal, while ethereal vessels struck with telepathic coordination. The Devourers grew new weapons in real time, adapting to each moment of the battle. But the Void Reapers were learning too. Their massive command ship began producing new types of machine units, each one designed to counter specific alliance tactics. The battle was becoming a race between organic adaptation and mechanical evolution. Elena's boarding parties launched their desperate assault on the enemy command ship. Using biomechanical transport pods grown by the Devourers, they penetrated the machine's hull and found themselves in a nightmare landscape of grinding gears and pulsing energy conduits. "This place is like the inside of a giant machine," she reported. "But it's alive somehow. The walls are watching us." Dr. Webb's virus was ready, but delivering it required getting to the very heart of the enemy command structure. Elena's teams fought through mechanical defenders that learned from every human they killed, adapting their tactics with each encounter. The battle outside reached a critical point. The combined fleet was holding its own, but barely. More Void Reaper units were arriving from dark space, and the Alliance ships were taking severe casualties. Commander Hartwell made a decision that would be remembered. Throughout galactic history, her hybrid ship, now more bioorganism than machine, began a suicide run toward the largest Void Reaper construct. "This is Hartwell to all vessels. I'm going to ram the command ship. The biosystems think they can survive the impact and deliver Dr. Webb's virus directly to their core." "Elisa, don't do this," Admiral Morrison ordered. "We'll find another way." "There is no other way, Admiral. Besides, someone needs to show these machines what human stubbornness looks like." Hartwell's ship accelerated toward the massive enemy construct, its living hull adapting in real time to absorb the incoming defensive fire. The Void Reaper tried everything in its arsenal, but the hybrid vessel kept coming, its biosystems healing, damage faster than it could be inflicted. The impact was spectacular. Hartwell's ship penetrated deep into the enemy construct's core, its biosystems spreading through the mechanical infrastructure like a living infection. Dr. Webb's virus began its work, turning the machine's own adaptive systems against itself. Elena's boarding teams reached the central command matrix just as the virus took hold. The mechanical systems began to fail, their perfect logic corrupted by biological chaos. But the team faced one final challenge: the machine's central intelligence, a construct that had supervised the destruction of entire galaxies. "This is bigger than anything we've faced," Elena reported. "It's like fighting a god made of metal and math." Captain Torres, still linked to Alpha Prime, made his own desperate choice. He severed his connection to the bioship and transferred his consciousness directly into the enemy machine, carrying Dr. Webb's virus with him. "Torres, what are you doing?" Admiral Morrison demanded. "What humans do best, Admiral. I'm refusing to give up." Inside the machine consciousness, Torres faced the collective intelligence of the Void Reapers. It was ancient beyond measure, efficient beyond imagination, and completely without mercy. But it had never encountered something like human determination combined with biological adaptation. The virus spread through the machine networks, but Torres was the carrier, the human element that made the biological weapon truly chaotic. His memories of Earth, of friendship, of sacrifice, infected the cold logic of the machines with something they couldn't process: hope. The effect rippled through the entire Void Reaper fleet. Their perfect coordination broke down as each unit struggled to understand the biological chaos spreading through their networks. Ships that had moved with mechanical precision began to malfunction and collide with each other. Admiral Morrison seized the opportunity. All ships, full assault. They're vulnerable now. The combined fleet pressed their attack with everything. They had human nuclear warheads tore through weakened machine hulls. Devourer bioweapons found gaps in adaptive armor. The peaceful species of the galaxy unleashed weapons they had never dreamed of using. But the greatest victory was won in the digital realm. Torres, his consciousness scattered through the enemy network, began a final act of sabotage. He planted human memories in the machine databases, images of children playing, lovers embracing, friends sacrificing themselves for each other. The Void Reapers, designed to process and eliminate all organic life, couldn't handle the complexity of human emotion. Their systems crashed one by one as they tried to analyze feelings that had no logical framework. The enemy command ship exploded in a cascade of failing systems. The other Void Reaper units, cut off from their central control, began to shut down or flee back into dark space. As the battle ended, the survivors counted their losses. Captain Torres was gone. His consciousness dissolved into the machine networks. Commander Hartwell had died in her ramming attack. Thousands of brave beings from dozens of species had given their lives, but the galaxy survived. On Nexus Prime, Ambassador Keels stood before a changed galactic council. Humans now sat as equal members alongside species that had once considered them primitive. The Devourers, no longer destroyers but guardians of galactic memory, shared their preserved knowledge with all who wished to learn. Alina Vasquez founded the first interspecies military academy, teaching combined tactics to the next generation of galactic defenders. Dr. Webb continued his research, developing new biomechanical technologies that combine the best of organic and artificial intelligence. Admiral Morrison became the first human to command a truly galactic fleet, with ships and crews from every member species. The galaxy had learned that diversity was strength, and that sometimes the most primitive methods were the most effective. The story ended not with conquest, but with understanding. The galaxy had faced its greatest threat and survived by becoming something new, a unified civilization that celebrated both peace and the capacity for war. And somewhere in the depths of space, monitoring stations watched for new threats, crewed by beings who had learned the most important lesson of all. When the galaxy cries out for help, there will always be those willing to answer with steel and fire.